The security monitors showed nothing but static at 3:47 a.m., and that was when Nicholas Kane knew his world had ended. He stood in his marble-floored security room, watching the footage from that terrible night 5 years ago for the 1000th time. His 2-year-old daughter Sophia had simply vanished from her bedroom, and the cameras that should have captured everything had mysteriously malfunctioned during those crucial 20 minutes. Nicholas pressed his palms against the cold desk, his breath coming in short bursts. The memory of that morning still felt like a knife twisting in his chest. He had walked into Sophia's nursery expecting to find his little girl sleeping peacefully in her crib, her dark curls spread across the pink pillow, her tiny fist clutched around her favorite stuffed elephant. Instead, he found an empty room and a life that would never be the same. The police had arrived within minutes of his frantic call. Detective Morrison, a seasoned officer with kind eyes, had tried to reassure him that most missing children cases ended happily. But as the hours turned into days and days turned into weeks, Nicholas watched that hope fade from the detective's expression. The FBI joined the investigation. Every employee at his company was questioned. His estranged wife Patricia was cleared of suspicion after providing an airtight alibi. Still, Sophia remained gone. Nicholas had built Kane Industries from nothing, turning a small construction company into a billion-dollar empire. He was used to solving problems, to making things happen through sheer determination and resources. But money meant nothing when your child was missing. All his wealth, all his connections, all his power, none of it could bring Sophia home. He hired the best private investigators money could buy. Teams of them working around the clock. He offered a $10 million reward for information leading to Sophia's safe return. His face was plastered on billboards across the country, alongside Sophia's picture and the words "missing" in bold red letters. Talk shows, news interviews, social media campaigns. Nicholas did everything he could think of to keep his daughter's case in the public eye. The toll was devastating. His marriage to Patricia, already strained, crumbled completely when she accused him of caring more about his obsession with finding Sophia than about their relationship. She moved out 6 months after Sophia disappeared, taking half his assets in the divorce. Nicholas barely noticed. Material possessions meant nothing anymore. His business began to suffer as he spent more time searching than working. Board meetings were canceled so he could fly to follow leads. Important deals fell through when he disappeared for days to investigate reported sightings. His assistant Rebecca tried her best to keep things running, but Nicholas's heart wasn't in it anymore. The worst part was the false hopes. Every few months, someone would call claiming they had seen Sophia. Nicholas would drop everything and race across the country, only to find another child who looked similar, or worse, people trying to claim the reward money with fake information. Each disappointment felt like losing her all over again. The media attention gradually faded. News stories took precedence. The billboards came down. The reward money still stood, but fewer and fewer people called. Detective Morrison retired, and the case was transferred to younger officers who didn't know Sophia's smile or remember how she used to toddle around Nicholas's office, chattering in her baby language while he worked. Nicholas refused to give up. He kept paying the private investigators, kept following every lead no matter how remote. He converted an entire floor of his office building into a command center for the search, with maps covering the walls and computers running facial recognition software 24/7. His friends worried about his health. He had lost weight, developed dark circles under his eyes, and seemed to exist on nothing but coffee and determination. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the family therapist Patricia had insisted they see during the divorce proceedings, told Nicholas that he needed to start processing his grief. She used words like closure and acceptance. Nicholas fired her after the first session. There would be no closure until Sophia was home. Late at night, when the investigators had gone home and the office was quiet, Nicholas would sit in Sophia's preserved nursery in his penthouse apartment. He had kept everything exactly as it was the day she disappeared. Her clothes still hung in the closet, sorted by size as she grew in his imagination. Her toys remained scattered on the floor where she had left them. The rocking chair where he used to read her bedtime stories sat empty in the corner. Sometimes he would pick up her favorite book, The Little Rabbit Who Loved to Dance, and read it aloud to the empty room. He would imagine her clapping her tiny hands and asking for "more, Daddy, more" in her sweet voice. Those moments kept him sane and drove him crazy at the same time. Tonight felt different though. Nicholas couldn't explain why, but something in his chest told him that tomorrow would bring news. Good news or bad he couldn't tell, but after 5 years of dead ends he was ready for anything. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nicholas's office as he reviewed the latest reports from his team of investigators. 43 folders sat on his mahogany desk, each representing a different lead they were currently pursuing. In 5 years they had investigated over 2,000 tips, traveled to 38 states, and spent close to $50 million. Every dollar had been worth it if it could bring Sophia home. Rebecca knocked on his office door and entered with his usual black coffee and a concerned expression. She had been his assistant for 8 years, staying loyal even when other employees jumped ship during the company's difficult period. Now she was more like family than staff. The investigative team from Texas called, she said, setting the coffee on his desk. The lead in Houston didn't pan out. The little girl they found was only 3 years old, and her parents had proper documentation. Nicholas nodded without looking up. He had learned not to let his hopes rise too high with each call. The disappointment was too crushing. Still, every lead had to be followed. Every possibility had to be explored. What about the Chicago team? He asked. Still working on the lead from the anonymous tip line. A woman called saying she saw a child who looked like Sophia at a grocery store on the south side. They're reviewing security footage now. Nicholas had heard variations of this conversation hundreds of times. Someone would spot a child with dark curls and brown eyes, call the tip line, and his investigators would spring into action. Most of the time, it was a well-meaning person who genuinely thought they were helping. Sometimes it was people hoping to claim the reward money. Either way, every call received the same level of attention. The reward money had grown over the years. What started as $10 million was now $25 million. Nicholas had increased it every year on Sophia's birthday, along with updated age progression photos showing what she might look like as she grew older. She would be 7 now, probably losing her baby teeth and learning to ride a bicycle. The thought made his chest tight. His phone buzzed with a call from Detective Stevens, Morrison's replacement on Sophia's case. The younger man was dedicated but lacked Morrison's experience and instinct. Still, Nicholas appreciated that he never suggested closing the case or moving on. Mr. Kane, I wanted to update you on the latest DNA comparison from the Oregon case. It's not a match. The child they found belongs to a different family entirely. Thank you for checking, Nicholas replied, making a note on his pad. Any new leads this week? Actually, yes. We got a call from a small town in Missouri. A school teacher thinks she might have seen Sophia in her classroom. We're sending someone to investigate tomorrow. Nicholas felt the familiar flutter of hope in his stomach, followed immediately by the voice of caution in his head. He had been disappointed too many times to let himself believe fully anymore. But he couldn't stop hoping either. After hanging up, he walked to the large map on his wall where red pins marked every location they had searched. The map looked like it had chicken pox, covered in so many pins that some areas were completely red. His investigators had become experts at their jobs, developing efficient systems for checking leads and ruling out false matches quickly. The technology had improved over the years too. Facial recognition software was more sophisticated now, able to age progress photos with incredible accuracy. Social media had become a powerful tool, allowing the search to reach millions of people with a single post. Nicholas had learned to use every resource available. His phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Patricia Hernandez from the National Center for Missing Children. She called every few months to check on the case and offer support services. Nicholas appreciated her dedication, even though he had declined most of her offers for counseling and support groups. Nicholas, I hope you're taking care of yourself, she said in her gentle voice. I know this week marks 5 years since Sophia disappeared. 5 years. The number felt impossible. Sophia had been missing longer than she had been with him. She was now more mystery than memory, more photograph than person in his daily life. Yet he could still hear her laugh, still remember the way she smelled after her evening bath, still feel the weight of her small body when she fell asleep in his arms during story time. I'm managing, he told Dr. Hernandez. The investigators are following several promising leads. I'm glad to hear that. Remember, our services are always available if you need them. And Nicholas? Don't give up hope. Miracles do happen in this field. I've seen children reunited with their families after many years. After the call ended, Nicholas returned to his work, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about Sophia's 7th birthday last month, which he had spent alone in her nursery, eating a small cake and singing happy birthday to her empty crib. He wondered if she was celebrating birthdays with another family now, if she was happy, if she ever wondered about her real father. The hardest part was not knowing. Was she safe? Was she loved? Was she even alive? The uncertainty was torture, but it was also what kept him searching. As long as he didn't know for sure, there was still hope. His computer chimed with an email from his lead investigator in California. Another dead end, but they had 3 new leads to explore next week. Nicholas sighed and marked his calendar. The search would continue as it had every day for 5 years, as it would continue until he found his daughter or drew his last breath trying. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out his favorite photo of Sophia, taken just weeks before she disappeared. She was sitting in her high chair, covered in spaghetti sauce and grinning at the camera with pure joy. Her dark eyes sparkled with mischief and love. This was the Sophia he was searching for, the happy little girl who had filled his life with purpose and laughter. "I'm going to find you, sweetheart," he whispered to the photo. "Daddy's never going to stop looking." The call came at 6:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in October. Nicholas had been awake for hours as he often was, sitting in his home office and reviewing case files. When his secure phone rang with the special ringtone reserved for his investigative team, his heart rate immediately spiked. "Mr. Kane, this is Jackson from the database monitoring team." The voice was barely controlled excitement. "Sir, I think we have something. A real something this time." Nicholas set down his coffee cup with trembling hands. "Tell me." The facial recognition software found a match in Millbrook, Missouri. Population 8,000, about 3 hours southwest of Kansas City. The match came from a school registration photo. Confidence level is 89%, which is higher than we've ever seen. Nicholas was already reaching for his car keys before Jackson finished speaking. "Send me everything. Address, school information, all of it. I'm leaving now." "Sir, maybe we should send a team first to verify before you make the trip. You know how these things usually go." "No." The word came out sharper than Nicholas intended. "I'm going myself. Right now." He ended the call and quickly showered and dressed. Within 30 minutes he was in his Mercedes, typing the address into his GPS. 3 hours and 12 minutes to Millbrook, Missouri. The drive would feel like a lifetime. His phone buzzed constantly as his team sent updates. The child was enrolled in 2nd grade at Millbrook Elementary School under the name Isabella Rodriguez. She was 7 years old, the right age. Her guardian was listed as Elena Rodriguez, a local seamstress with no criminal record. The school photo showed a little girl with dark curls and brown eyes that made Nicholas's heart stop. She looked exactly like Sophia should look at 7 years old. Nicholas pressed harder on the accelerator, forcing himself to stay within reasonable speed limits. Getting pulled over would only delay him. His hands shook on the steering wheel as he imagined the possibilities. What if it really was her? What if his 5-year nightmare was finally ending? The investigative team called with more information as he drove. Elena Rodriguez had moved to Millbrook 6 years ago with a toddler she claimed was her niece. She lived quietly, worked at a local alterations shop, and had no known connections to Nicholas or anyone in his circle. The story didn't add up, but then again most kidnapping stories didn't make sense to outsiders. As Nicholas entered Millbrook, his chest grew tighter with each mile. The town was exactly what he expected from the population numbers: small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. Main Street was lined with family-owned shops and restaurants. American flags hung from the street lights. It was the sort of place someone might go to disappear. The address led him to a small but well-maintained house on Elm Street. The yard was neat, with flower boxes under the windows and a child's bicycle on the front porch. A swing hung from the large oak tree in the front yard. Everything about the scene spoke of a normal, loving home, which somehow made Nicholas feel worse. He sat in his car for several minutes, gathering courage. What if he was wrong? What if this was just another heartbreaking false alarm? But what if he was right? What if his daughter was inside that house right now, living with a woman who had stolen her 5 years ago? Before he could lose his nerve, Nicholas got out of the car and walked to the front door. His legs felt unsteady beneath him. He knocked gently and after a moment, heard footsteps approaching. The door opened to reveal a petite Hispanic woman in her early 40s. She had kind eyes and flour on her hands, as if she had been baking. When she saw Nicholas, her expression shifted from polite curiosity to concern. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for Elena Rodriguez. My name is Nicholas Kane." The woman's face went pale. "I'm Elena. What is this about? I think you might have my daughter." The words hung in the air between them like a live wire. Elena's hand flew to her mouth and for a moment, Nicholas thought she might faint. Then, from somewhere inside the house, came the sound of a child's laughter. "Isabella, stay in the kitchen, honey," Elena called without taking her eyes off Nicholas. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "Mr. Kane, I don't understand what you mean. 5 years ago, my 2-year-old daughter Sophia disappeared from our home. I've been searching for her ever since. My investigators found a school photo of a child named Isabella Rodriguez who looks exactly like my daughter should look now. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Kane, I found Isabella at a bus station when she was barely 2 years old. She was alone, scared, hungry. No one came for her. I waited hours, asked everyone I could find. The police said they would investigate, but no one ever came looking for her. I couldn't just leave her there. Nicholas felt the world shift beneath his feet. This wasn't the story he had expected. Where was the kidnapper? Where was the person who had stolen his child for ransom or revenge? Instead, he was facing a woman who claimed to have rescued his daughter. Can I see her? He whispered. Elena hesitated, then nodded. But please be gentle. She doesn't know about any of this. To her, I'm her mother. This is the only home she remembers. Nicholas followed Elena into the house, his heart hammering against his ribs. The interior was modest but warm, filled with handmade furniture and children's artwork taped to the refrigerator. The smell of fresh cookies filled the air. And then he saw her. She was sitting at the kitchen table, coloring in a book, her dark hair falling in soft curls around her face. When she looked up at Nicholas with those familiar brown eyes, he nearly collapsed. It was Sophia. His Sophia. 5 years older, but unmistakably his daughter. Isabella, this is Mr. Kane, Elena said softly. He's here to talk to Mama for a few minutes. Sophia Isabella smiled at him with the same bright expression she had worn as a toddler. Hi, Mr. Kane. Do you want to see my picture? I drew a butterfly. Nicholas knelt down to her level, tears streaming down his face. I would love to see your butterfly. It's beautiful, just like you. As his daughter showed him her artwork, chattering about school and her friends and the kitten she hoped to get for her birthday, Nicholas realized that his 5-year search was finally over. But it was also just beginning, because now he had to figure out how to rebuild a relationship with the daughter who didn't remember him, and how to handle the woman who had saved her life. Elena Rodriguez had not expected her Tuesday morning to include a conversation that would change her entire world. She sat across from Nicholas Kane in her small living room, watching Isabella color at the kitchen table through the open doorway. The little girl was humming softly to herself, completely unaware that her life was about to transform forever. Tell me everything, Nicholas said quietly. His voice was steady now, though Elena could see the emotion in his eyes every time he looked toward Isabella. Start from the beginning. Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, gathering strength from its warmth. The story she was about to tell had shaped the last 5 years of her life, and she had never shared it with anyone. I was working at the alteration shop in Kansas City back then, she began. My husband had died in a construction accident the year before, and I was struggling to make ends meet. I worked long hours, sometimes until 9 or 10 at night to finish rush orders. Nicholas nodded, encouraging her to continue. That night, October 15th, I was taking the bus home after working late. When we stopped at the downtown station, I saw her. Elena's voice grew soft as she remembered. This tiny little girl, maybe 2 years old, sitting alone on a bench. She was wearing a pink nightgown and no shoes. She was crying, but quietly, like she had been crying for so long she was exhausted. Nicholas's jaw tightened. Was anyone with her? Did you see who left her there? No one. The station was almost empty at that hour. I asked the security guard and he said she had been there for at least 2 hours. He called the police, but they said it would be a while before someone could come. The guard was getting ready to leave his shift, and there was no one else around. Elena paused, taking a shaky breath. Mr. Kane, I couldn't just leave her there. She was so small, so scared. When I approached her, she stopped crying and reached for me. She said one word, Mama. The word hit Nicholas like a physical blow. Sophia had been calling for her mother, but Patricia hadn't lived with them for months before the disappearance. The little girl must have been confused and terrified. What did you do? Nicholas asked. I took her home with me. I know I should have waited for the police, but it was getting late and she was shivering. I thought maybe her parents would come looking the next day, or the police would find out where she belonged. I never imagined. Elena's voice trailed off. You never imagined what? I never imagined that no one would come for her. I took her to the police station the next morning. I called hospitals, checked with social services, even put up flyers around the area where I found her. Nothing. It was like she had appeared out of nowhere. Nicholas felt a surge of frustration. Didn't you see the news coverage? The reward announcements? Her picture was everywhere. Elena shook her head sadly. Mr. Kane, I don't watch much television, and I certainly don't read news about wealthy people in other states. At that time, I was working 2 jobs just to pay rent. When I saw her picture on missing child websites, it was weeks later, and by then she looked different. Children change so fast at that age. Nicholas forced himself to stay calm. He could see the genuine pain in Elena's eyes, the way she kept glancing toward Isabella with protective love. This woman wasn't a kidnapper. She was someone who had found his daughter and saved her. Why didn't you turn her over to social services when no one claimed her? I tried, Elena said firmly. But the system was overwhelmed. They told me it could take months to find her a placement, and she would likely be moved several times before finding a permanent home. Mr. Kane, she had already been through such trauma. She had nightmares every night for months. She would wake up crying for her daddy. Nicholas's heart clenched. She remembered me? For a while, yes. But she was so young and the memories faded. I did everything I could to comfort her. I sang to her, rocked her, told her she was safe. Eventually, the nightmare stopped and she started calling me Mama. What was I supposed to do? Tell her no? Elena stood up and walked to a bookshelf, returning with a photo album. I documented everything. Every doctor's appointment, every milestone, every first day of school. I wanted to make sure that if her real family ever found her, they would know she was loved and cared for. Nicholas opened the album with trembling hands. Page after page showed Isabella growing up. Her first Christmas with Elena, learning to ride a bike, starting kindergarten, losing her first tooth. In every photo, she looked happy and healthy. Elena had kept detailed notes about each milestone, including dates and Isabella's reactions. She's been a good student, Elena continued. She loves to read and draw. She's gentle with animals and always tries to help other kids who are sad. She asks questions about everything and makes up stories about the characters in her books. Nicholas could barely speak. Does she know she's adopted? I've always been honest with her that she came to live with me when she was very small, and that I'm not her birth mother. She knows I found her and chose to love her. I planned to tell her more details when she was older. Through the doorway, they could hear Isabella starting to sing a song she was learning in school. Her voice was sweet and clear, just as Nicholas remembered Sophia's voice when she was little. Mr. Kane, Elena said softly, I need you to understand something. I love that little girl more than my own life. She's been my whole world for 5 years. I know she's your daughter, and I know you have legal rights that I could never fight. But please, whatever you decide to do, please remember that she doesn't understand any of this. To her, this is her home and I'm her mother. Nicholas looked at this woman who had raised his daughter with such obvious love and care. Elena could have given Isabella to social services. She could have walked away when no one claimed her. Instead, she had sacrificed everything to give Sophia a stable, loving home. Elena, he said finally, you saved my daughter's life. You gave her love when she needed it most. You kept her safe when I couldn't. I don't know how to thank you for that. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I just want her to be happy. So do I, Nicholas replied. And I think I have an idea about how to make that happen. Nicholas Kane had built his fortune by making quick decisions and sticking to them. He had never been the kind of man who second-guessed himself or let emotions cloud his judgment. But as he sat in Elena Rodriguez's modest living room, watching his daughter color peacefully at the kitchen table, he found himself facing the most important decision of his life. The logical part of his brain told him to take Sophia home immediately. She was his daughter, stolen from him 5 years ago. He had legal rights. He had been searching for her desperately all this time. Any court in the country would side with him. But another part of his brain, the part that had grown wiser through years of loss and searching, recognized something profound. Elena Rodriguez had not stolen his daughter. She had saved her. And Sophia Isabella was thriving under her care. Elena, he said quietly, making sure his voice wouldn't carry to the kitchen, I need to ask you something important. If I told you that you could continue to be part of Isabella's life, would you be willing to make some changes? Elena looked confused. What kind of changes? Big ones. Life-changing ones. Nicholas leaned forward, his decision crystallizing as he spoke. I want to move you both to Chicago, near my home. I want to set you up in a beautiful house with everything you need. I want to make sure you never have to worry about money again, and I want Isabella to have both of us in her life. Elena stared at him in shock. Mr. Kane, I don't understand. You don't owe me anything. I only did what anyone would do. No, Elena. You did what a truly good person would do. Most people would have walked past a crying child at a bus station. Most people would have turned her over to the authorities and moved on with their lives. You sacrificed 5 years of your own life to give my daughter the love and stability she needed. Nicholas stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street where his daughter had grown up. Do you know what I did during those 5 years while you were raising Isabella? I spent millions of dollars on investigators. I flew around the country chasing false leads. I let my marriage fall apart and my business suffer. I was so focused on finding her that I forgot how to live. He turned back to Elena. You didn't just keep her alive, Elena. You helped her thrive. Look at her in there, she's confident, happy, secure. She feels loved. That's because of you. Elena wiped tears from her eyes. She is a special little girl. So smart and kind. Yes, she is. And she's that way because she's had a mother who cared for her properly. Nicholas sat back down, his voice growing stronger with conviction. I'm not going to rip her away from the only mother she remembers. That would be cruel to both of you. Instead, I want us to figure out how to be a family together. Mr. Kane, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept such a gift. It wouldn't be right. Nicholas had expected this response. In his research about Elena, he had learned about her pride and independence. She had never taken charity or asked for help, even when she was struggling financially. Elena, let me ask you something. If Isabella needed expensive medical treatment to save her life, would you accept help to pay for it? Of course, but that's different. Is it? Isabella needs her father in her life, but she also needs you. The only way to give her both is if you accept my help. You wouldn't be taking charity, Elena. You'd be accepting payment for 5 years of being the world's best nanny to my daughter. Elena shook her head. I wasn't her nanny. I was her mother. Exactly. And I want you to continue being her mother. But now you'll have support and resources to give her everything she deserves. From the kitchen came Isabella's voice. Mama, can I have another cookie? Just one more, baby, Elena called back automatically. Then she looked at Nicholas with new understanding. She calls me Mama. I know. And I hope she always will. Elena, I've been thinking about this during our conversation. I don't want to be the father who shows up after 5 years and disrupts the beautiful life you've built together. I want to be the father who makes that life even better. Nicholas pulled out his phone and showed Elena some photos. This is my house in Chicago. It has 8 bedrooms, a library, a garden where Isabella could play. There's an excellent elementary school nearby. You could have your own space, your own independence, but we'd all be close enough to be a real family. I still don't understand why you're being so kind to me, Elena said. I know wealthy men who would be angry that I kept their child for 5 years. Nicholas thought about this question. The honest answer was complex. Yes, part of him had been angry during the car ride to Missouri. He had imagined confronting whoever had taken his daughter, demanding answers, possibly even pressing charges. But the moment he saw Elena with Isabella, the moment he understood the real story, his anger had transformed into something else entirely. Elena, 5 years ago when Sophia disappeared, I was arrogant enough to believe that money could solve any problem. I thought if I just hired enough people and spent enough money, I could find her and bring her home. But what I couldn't buy was the assurance that she was safe and loved while I was searching for her. He gestured toward the kitchen where Isabella was now singing softly to herself. You gave me that gift without even knowing it. Every night for 5 years, I went to bed wondering if my daughter was okay. Now I know she was more than okay. She was cherished. Elena was quiet for a long moment. What about Isabella? What do we tell her? We tell her the truth in a way she can understand. We tell her that I'm her daddy who's been looking for her for a long time, and now we found each other. We tell her that I'm so grateful to you for taking care of her, that I want us all to be a family together. And if she doesn't want to leave her home here? Nicholas smiled for the first time in hours. Then we'll make sure she has 2 homes. Elena, I have resources that most people can't imagine. I can make this transition as easy or as gradual as Isabella needs it to be. The important thing is that she feels safe and loved throughout the process. Mr. Kane? Nicholas. Please call me Nicholas. Nicholas, this is overwhelming. I need time to think about all of this. Of course. But Elena, I want you to know that this isn't a negotiation. I'm not offering you these things in exchange for access to my daughter. I'm offering them because they're right, and because I believe Isabella deserves to have every advantage in life. That includes having both of her parents who love her. Isabella appeared in the doorway, her coloring book in her hands. Mr. Nicholas, would you like to see all my pictures? I drew a whole family of butterflies. Nicholas knelt down to her level, his heart swelling. I would love to see every single one, Isabella. And maybe you could tell me about each butterfly? As his daughter settled beside him on the couch, chattering about her artwork, Nicholas caught Elena's eye over Isabella's head. The look they shared was one of mutual understanding. They both loved this little girl more than anything else in the world. They would figure out the details later, but the foundation was solid. Isabella's happiness came first, always. 3 weeks later, Elena Rodriguez stood in the doorway of the most beautiful house she had ever seen, holding Isabella's small hand as they both stared in amazement. The moving trucks had just departed, taking their few belongings from Millbrook to this magnificent home in one of Chicago's most exclusive neighborhoods. "Mama, is this really where we're going to live?" Isabella whispered, her eyes wide as she took in the grand foyer with its crystal chandelier and marble floors. "Yes, baby. This is our new home," Elena replied, still hardly believing it herself. Nicholas appeared from what looked like a library, his face lighting up when he saw them. Over the past 3 weeks, he had visited them in Millbrook 6 times, gradually building a relationship with Isabella while helping Elena plan their transition. True to his word, he had made everything as easy as possible. "Welcome home," he said warmly. "Isabella, would you like to see your new bedroom? I had it decorated just for you." Isabella looked up at Elena for permission, and Elena nodded with a smile. "Go ahead, sweetheart. I'll be right behind you." Nicholas led them up the curved staircase to the second floor. The hallway was lined with family photos, some of Sophia as a baby, and newer ones that Nicholas had taken during his visits to Millbrook. Isabella stopped in front of one showing all 3 of them at the park. "That's my favorite picture," she said solemnly. "We all look happy together." Nicholas's throat tightened with emotion. "We are happy together, aren't we?" "Yes. Mama says you're my daddy who was looking for me for a really long time, and now you found me." "That's exactly right. And I'm never going to lose you again." He opened the door to Isabella's new room, and both she and Elena gasped. The space was fit for a princess, but not in an overwhelming way. The walls were painted soft lavender, Isabella's favorite color, with hand-painted butterflies dancing across them. A beautiful canopy bed sat in the center, surrounded by bookshelves filled with age-appropriate books, art supplies and carefully chosen toys. "Do you like it?" Nicholas asked nervously. He had worked with a child psychologist to ensure the room would feel welcoming rather than intimidating. Isabella ran to the window seat overlooking the garden. "Mama, look. I can see the whole backyard. And there's a swing like our old house." Elena walked over to join her daughter, noting the thoughtful details Nicholas had included. The swing outside was identical to the one in their Millbrook yard. Some of Isabella's favorite stuffed animals from their old home were arranged on the bed alongside new ones. "Nicholas, this is beautiful," Elena said softly. "You didn't have to do all this." "Yes, I did. Isabella deserves to feel at home here immediately." He showed them around the rest of the house, Elena's master suite with its own sitting area and bathroom larger than her entire apartment in Millbrook, the playroom filled with art supplies and games, the library where Isabella could read quietly, and the kitchen where Elena would have every tool she could possibly need for cooking. "Now," Nicholas said as they finished the tour, "there's something else I want to show you both." He led them to a room near the front of the house that had been converted into a workspace. Sewing machines, fabric cutting tables, dress forms and organizational systems filled the bright, airy space. "Elena, I know you love alterations and design work. I thought you might like to have a place to continue that here if you want to." Elena stared at the setup in amazement. Everything was top of the line, professional quality. "Nicholas, this must have cost a fortune." "Elena, I need you to understand something. Money is not an issue for our family anymore. You raised my daughter for 5 years, asking for nothing in return. The least I can do is make sure you have everything you need to pursue your passions." "Can I help you sew, Mama?" Isabella asked, running her hands over the smooth fabric samples. "Of course, baby. We can make beautiful things together." Nicholas watched them explore the sewing room, feeling a contentment he hadn't experienced in years. This was what family looked like, not just shared genetics but shared love, shared space, shared dreams. That evening, they sat together in the family room for Isabella's bedtime story. It had become their routine during Nicholas's visits to Millbrook, and he was determined to maintain it here. Elena curled up on one end of the sofa with Isabella in her lap, while Nicholas sat nearby, reading from The Little Rabbit Who Loved to Dance, the same book he used to read to Sophia as a baby. "Daddy Nicholas," Isabella said sleepily, "will you read to me every night now that we live in the same house?" "Every single night, sweetheart. That's a promise." After tucking Isabella into her new bed, Nicholas and Elena sat in the kitchen, sharing coffee and processing the enormity of the day. "Elena, I want you to know that tomorrow I'm taking you to meet with my financial advisor. I'm setting up trust funds for both you and Isabella. You'll never have to worry about money again." Elena shook her head. Nicholas, you've already done too much. I've done what any father would do if he had the resources. Elena, you gave up 5 years of your life to raise my daughter. You could have been pursuing your own dreams, maybe finding love again, building your own career. Instead, you devoted yourself completely to Isabella. I don't regret a single day of it. I know you don't. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be compensated for the sacrifice. Besides, I need to know that if something happens to me, both of you will be secure. Elena considered this. What about Isabella's education? Already taken care of. I've enrolled her in the best private school in the city, but if you think she'd be happier in public school, we can change that. I want her to have every opportunity, but I also want her to feel comfortable and confident. She's excited about making new friends. She'll do great. Isabella is so warm and friendly, just like her mother. Nicholas smiled at Elena. Both of her mothers. The compliment made Elena blush. Over the past 3 weeks, she had come to deeply respect Nicholas. He was nothing like the demanding, arrogant billionaire she had expected. Instead, he was thoughtful, generous, and completely devoted to Isabella's well-being. Nicholas, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think you'll ever want to remarry? Have more children? Nicholas was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I haven't thought about romance in years. Finding Isabella has been my only focus. But now that she's home and safe, I suppose I'm open to the possibility. Why do you ask? I just want to make sure that if you do meet someone, Isabella and I won't be in the way. Elena, you and Isabella are family now. Nothing will ever change that. Any woman who comes into my life will have to understand that you're part of our family permanently. Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. For 5 years she had been Isabella's only parent, making every decision alone and worrying constantly about their future. Now, for the first time, she had a partner in raising the little girl they both loved. Thank you, Nicholas, for everything. I know I keep saying that, but I don't think you understand how much this means to us. Elena, thank you for saving my daughter and raising her to be the amazing little girl she is today. Thank you for loving her when I couldn't be there to do it myself. As they sat together in comfortable silence, both of them could hear Isabella talking softly to her stuffed animals upstairs, telling them about their new home. The sound filled the house with warmth and life, exactly as Nicholas had always dreamed it would. Their new life together was just beginning. 2 months into their new life in Chicago, Nicholas Kane found himself experiencing a kind of happiness he had forgotten was possible. Every morning, he woke up to the sound of Isabella's laughter echoing through the house as she and Elena prepared breakfast together. Every evening, he came home from work to find his daughter waiting by the window, ready to tell him about her day at school. The transition had been smoother than anyone expected. Isabella had adapted to her new school with remarkable ease, making friends quickly and impressing her teachers with her curiosity and kindness. Her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had called Nicholas just the week before to tell him that Isabella was one of the most well-adjusted children she had ever taught. She has such a strong sense of security, Mrs. Patterson had said. You can tell she feels deeply loved at home. Nicholas knew that security came from Elena. Even in their new luxurious surroundings, Elena had maintained the routines and boundaries that had made Isabella feel safe in their Millbrook home. Bedtime was still at 8 o'clock with a story and songs. Saturday mornings were still for pancakes and cartoons. Sunday afternoons were still for visits to the library. What had changed was the addition of Nicholas to these routines. He now helped with homework every evening, sitting at the kitchen table while Isabella practiced her spelling words. He attended every school event, from parent-teacher conferences to the Halloween carnival where Isabella had won second place in the costume contest dressed as a butterfly. The relationship between Nicholas and Elena had evolved too. What had started as a complex arrangement between two people who loved the same child had grown into a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. This particular Saturday morning, Nicholas found them in Elena's sewing room, where Isabella was learning to use the child-safe scissors to cut fabric shapes. "Daddy Nicholas," Isabella called when she saw him. "Look what I'm making. It's a dress for my doll, but Mama says if I get really good at sewing I can make clothes for real people too." "That's beautiful, sweetheart. You're becoming quite the artist." Elena looked up from the dress. She was working on a custom piece for one of her new clients. Word had spread quickly through Chicago's social circles about Elena's exceptional skill with alterations and custom work. Nicholas had helped her build a client base by introducing her to some of his business contacts, but her reputation was growing on its own merit. "Nicholas, I wanted to talk to you about something," Elena said, setting down her needle. "Isabella, honey, why don't you go wash your hands and we'll start lunch in a few minutes?" When Isabella had skipped out of the room, Elena turned to Nicholas with a serious expression. I've been thinking about our arrangement, and I want to make some changes. Nicholas felt his stomach drop. Had Elena decided this wasn't working? Was she unhappy with their living situation? What kind of changes? He asked carefully. I want to contribute more to Isabella's expenses. The trust fund you set up is incredibly generous, but I'm earning good money now with my sewing business. I should be paying for some of her clothes, her school supplies, her activities. Nicholas relaxed, realizing Elena's concerns were about independence, not dissatisfaction. Elena, you don't need to worry about that. I can afford to take care of everything. I know you can afford it, but I need to feel like I'm contributing. For 5 years I was Isabella's sole provider. Now I feel like I'm just along for the ride. Nicholas sat down across from Elena, understanding her perspective better than she probably realized. His own sense of identity had been tied to being a provider and protector. Having that role taken away even temporarily had been difficult. What would make you feel better? He asked. Let me pay for her everyday needs, clothes, school supplies, after-school activities. You can handle the big things like tuition and medical expenses. And I want to start contributing to the household expenses too. Elena, this house is paid for. The utilities are minimal compared to my income. Then let me contribute in other ways. I could cook more meals, help manage the household staff, take over some of the day-to-day responsibilities that you're paying other people to handle. Nicholas considered this. He had a housekeeper who came 3 times a week, a gardener, and a chef who prepared meals when he was too busy to cook. Elena was offering to take over some of these roles not because she had to, but because she wanted to feel useful and needed. Elena, what if we approach this differently? Instead of thinking about financial contributions, what if we think about this as a true partnership? You handle the things you're good at and enjoy, I handle the things I'm good at, and we make decisions about Isabella together. What do you mean? I mean you're a better cook than my chef and Isabella loves your meals. You have better instincts about her emotional needs than I do. You understand how to make a house feel like a home. These aren't lesser contributions, they're essential ones. Elena smiled for the first time since the conversation started. I do love taking care of you both. And we love having you take care of us. Elena, you're not a guest in this house or an employee. You're Isabella's mother and my partner in raising her. That's a role I could never replace with money. Before Elena could respond, Isabella burst back into the room. Can we have grilled cheese for lunch? And can we eat in the garden? It's so nice outside. That sounds perfect, Elena said, standing up and smoothing Isabella's hair. Why don't you and Daddy Nicholas set up the picnic table while I make lunch? As Nicholas and Isabella worked together to arrange the outdoor furniture, Isabella chattered about her plans for the weekend. She wanted to finish her doll's dress, practice riding her bicycle without training wheels, and visit the bookstore to find a new chapter book. Daddy Nicholas, do you think Mama Elena is happy here? Isabella asked suddenly. The question surprised Nicholas. What makes you ask that, sweetheart? Sometimes I see her looking sad when she thinks nobody is watching. In our old house, she used to sing all the time while she cooked. Here, she's quieter sometimes. Nicholas felt a pang of concern. He had been so focused on making sure Isabella was adjusting well that he hadn't paid enough attention to Elena's emotional needs. Isabella, change is hard for grown-ups too, even when it's good change. Mama Elena left behind her friends and her old life to come here with us. Maybe she's missing some things about Millbrook. Should we go visit? I miss Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store. She always gave me free cookies. That's a wonderful idea. Let's plan a trip back to Millbrook soon so Mama Elena can see her friends. When Elena joined them in the garden with a tray of perfectly golden grilled cheese sandwiches and homemade soup, Nicholas watched her carefully. Isabella was right, there was a wistfulness in Elena's expression that he hadn't noticed before. Elena, he said as they ate, Isabella and I were just talking about taking a trip back to Millbrook. Would you like that? Elena's face lit up with genuine joy for the first time in weeks. Really? You wouldn't mind? Of course not. It's important for you to maintain connections with your old life. And I'd love to meet the people who were part of Isabella's childhood. Mrs. Henderson would love to meet you, Isabella said excitedly. And Mr. Garcia who fixed our car, and Mrs. Wilson from the library. As they planned their return visit to Millbrook, Nicholas realized that building a family wasn't just about providing financial security or even emotional support. It was about understanding that everyone in the family had needs, histories, and connections that deserved respect and attention. Elena had given up everything to come to Chicago with them. The least he could do was make sure she didn't have to give up everything forever. 6 months after moving to Chicago, Elena Rodriguez was living a life she could never have imagined. The trust fund Nicholas had established gave her financial security beyond her wildest dreams. Isabella was thriving in her new school, and their family dynamic had settled into something beautiful and comfortable. But Elena had always been a woman who needed purpose beyond just existing. For 20 years she had supported herself through her alterations work, taking pride in her craftsmanship and independence. Now, even though she no longer needed to work for survival, she found herself yearning for something more than just being a beneficiary of Nicholas's generosity. The idea came to her on a Tuesday morning while she was having coffee with Sarah Mitchell, one of her regular clients. Sarah was a prominent socialite who had become a genuine friend over the months, and she had been encouraging Elena to think bigger about her sewing business. "Elena, you're wasting your talents doing just alterations," Sarah said, admiring the intricate beadwork Elena had added to her evening gown. "You should have your own boutique. Your designs are better than anything I've seen in the high-end shops downtown." "A boutique?" Elena laughed. "Sarah, I'm just a seamstress. You're an artist. Every piece you've made for me has been exceptional. And you have something most designers don't have: you understand how to make clothes that make women feel beautiful and confident." That afternoon, Elena found herself walking through Chicago's fashion district, looking at the various boutiques and shops with new eyes. She had always admired the elegant storefronts and beautiful displays, but she had never imagined herself as someone who could own such a place. When Nicholas came home that evening, he found Elena and Isabella in the kitchen, but Elena seemed distracted and thoughtful. "Mama's been quiet all day," Isabella reported. "She burned the cookies because she was daydreaming." Nicholas sat down at the kitchen island, studying Elena's expression. "What's on your mind?" Elena hesitated. She had grown comfortable asking Nicholas for things Isabella needed, but this felt different. This was about her own dreams and ambitions. "Sarah Mitchell suggested something today that I can't stop thinking about," she began slowly. "She thinks I should open my own boutique." Nicholas's eyes lit up immediately. "Elena, that's a fantastic idea. You're incredibly talented. But I don't know anything about running a business. I've only ever worked for other people. Those are skills you can learn. The important thing is that you have the talent and the vision. Tell me more about what you're thinking." Over the next hour, Elena found herself sharing dreams she had barely admitted to herself. She talked about designing clothes that made women feel elegant but comfortable, about creating a shop that felt welcoming rather than intimidating, about offering custom fitting services that would make every customer feel special. "I've always loved the idea of helping women find clothes that truly suit them," she said. "Not just following trends, but finding what makes each person look and feel their best." Isabella, who had been coloring at the table while they talked, looked up with excitement. "Mama, you could make the most beautiful dresses. And I could help organize the buttons and ribbons." Nicholas smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. "Isabella's right. And Elena, I think this is exactly what you should do." "Nicholas, I couldn't ask you to invest in something like this. You've already done so much for us." "Elena, you're not asking me to invest. I'm offering to help you build something that's yours. There's a difference." Over the following weeks, Nicholas threw himself into helping Elena research the boutique business with the same intensity he had once brought to searching for Isabella. He connected her with business consultants, helped her understand commercial real estate, and introduced her to other successful small business owners. Elena was amazed by how much there was to learn. Inventory management, customer service systems, marketing strategies, accounting procedures. It was overwhelming but exciting. Nicholas arranged for her to take business classes and hired a mentor to guide her through the process. The location came together almost by magic. Nicholas found a beautiful space in Lincoln Park, close enough to their home that Elena could easily manage both her business and family responsibilities. The building had large windows that would showcase her designs beautifully, and enough space for both retail and a custom fitting area. "Elena, I want to show you something," Nicholas said one Saturday morning, driving her and Isabella to the empty storefront. When Elena saw the space, she could immediately envision how it would look. The front area would display ready-made pieces and accessories. The back would have private fitting rooms where she could work with clients on custom pieces. There was even a small area where Isabella could do homework after school if needed. "Nicholas, it's perfect. But the rent on a space like this must be enormous." "Elena, I'm not renting this space for you. I'm buying it for you. This will be your building, your business, completely." Elena stared at him in shock. "I can't let you buy me a building." "Yes, you can." "Elena, do you remember what you told me the day we met? You said you found Isabella and couldn't just leave her there. You did what needed to be done because it was right. Elena nodded, not understanding the connection. I'm doing what needs to be done because it's right. You have a gift and you deserve the chance to share it with the world. Isabella deserves to see her mother pursuing her dreams and building something meaningful. And honestly, I believe this boutique is going to be incredibly successful. This isn't charity, Elena. It's an investment in someone I believe in. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Elena worked with an interior designer to create a space that felt warm and elegant. She developed relationships with fabric suppliers and learned about business insurance and permits. She created a line of designs that ranged from everyday wear to special occasion pieces. Nicholas helped with the business planning, but he was careful to let Elena make all the creative and operational decisions. This was her vision and he wanted her to have complete ownership of it. Isabella was involved in every step of the process. She helped choose paint colors, test the lighting, and even modeled some of Elena's children's designs. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and she told everyone at school about her mama's new boutique. The grand opening was scheduled for a Saturday in late spring. Elena had been nervous for weeks, worrying that no one would come, that her designs weren't good enough, that she had been foolish to think she could run her own business. But when she arrived at the boutique that morning to do final preparations, she found a line of customers already waiting outside. Sarah Mitchell was first in line, followed by several of Elena's other clients and many people she had never met who had heard about the opening through word of mouth. Nicholas and Isabella arrived with flowers and a good luck banner that Isabella had made herself. "Mama, you're going to be the best boutique owner ever," Isabella declared, hugging Elena tightly. As Elena unlocked the doors and welcomed her first customers, she felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that had nothing to do with money or security. This was hers. She had built this with her own hands, her own vision, and her own hard work. By the end of the day, she had sold nearly half her inventory and booked appointments for custom fittings through the next month. "Elena," Nicholas said as they locked up that evening, "I am so proud of you. This is just the beginning." Elena looked around her beautiful boutique, then at Nicholas and Isabella who had supported her dream every step of the way. "Thank you for believing in me," she said. "For helping me believe in myself." As they walked home together, Isabella skipping between them, Elena realized that she had everything she had ever wanted. A thriving business, a beautiful home, and most importantly, a family who loved and supported each other unconditionally. 9 months had passed since Nicholas found his daughter in Millbrook, and 7-year-old Isabella Kane Rodriguez had grown into a confident, articulate child who seemed to understand her unique family situation better than most adults could comprehend. She had legally taken both her father's surname and Elena's, insisting that she belonged to both of them equally. On this particular Sunday afternoon, the three of them were enjoying a picnic in their backyard when Isabella made an announcement that would change everything. "I need to tell you both something important," she said, setting down her peanut butter sandwich with the seriousness of a judge delivering a verdict. Nicholas and Elena exchanged glances. Over the months, they had learned to pay attention when Isabella used her serious voice. "What is it, sweetheart?" Elena asked. "I've been thinking a lot about our family and I want you to know that I love both of you exactly the same amount. Daddy Nicholas, you're my first daddy, and I'm really happy you found me. Mama Elena, you're my first mama who took care of me when I was scared and little." Nicholas felt his throat tighten with emotion. Even after all these months, hearing Isabella call him Daddy still felt like a miracle. "We love you too, Isabella," he said softly. "I know you do. But I also know that sometimes grown-ups worry about things that kids don't worry about. So I want to tell you my decision about our family." "What decision is that?" Elena asked, curious about what had been going through her daughter's mind. Isabella stood up and positioned herself between Nicholas and Elena, taking one of each of their hands. "I've decided that I want both of you to be my real parents forever and ever. Not just until I grow up, but always. And I want us to always live together as a family." "Isabella, we are a real family," Nicholas assured her. "Nothing will ever change that." "I know, but I want to make it official. Tommy at school says his parents had to sign papers when they adopted his little sister to make her officially part of their family. I want you and Mama Elena to sign papers too." Elena looked confused. "Baby, I don't understand. Daddy Nicholas is your biological father, and I'm already your legal guardian." Isabella shook her head with the patience of a child explaining something obvious to slow adults. "Mama Elena, I want Daddy Nicholas to adopt you too so you can be my legal mama forever. And Daddy Nicholas, I want you to adopt Mama Elena so she can be part of our family officially." Nicholas and Elena stared at each other over Isabella's head, both realizing what their daughter was actually asking for. Isabella, Nicholas said carefully, when adults adopt each other, it's called marriage. Are you saying you want Elena and me to get married? Yes. That's exactly what I want. Isabella exclaimed, as if they had finally grasped a simple concept. You both love me and you both take care of me and you're both always nice to each other. Isn't that what families do? Elena felt her face flush red. Isabella, sweetheart, marriage is more complicated than that. People get married when they love each other in a special way, not just because they both love the same child. But you do love each other, Isabella said matter-of-factly. I can tell. Nicholas and Elena looked at each other again, and this time the look lingered. Over the past 9 months, their relationship had deepened from mutual respect to genuine affection. They had become partners in every sense except the romantic one. They made decisions together, supported each other's dreams, and had created a home filled with laughter and love. Isabella, Elena said gently, even if Daddy Nicholas and I did have special feelings for each other, marriage is a big decision that adults need to think about very carefully. How long do you need to think about it? Isabella asked with the impatience of a child who had already solved the problem. Nicholas couldn't help but smile. Why is this so important to you, sweetheart? Because I want to know that our family will never change. I want to know that if something happens to one of you, the other one will still be my parent. I want to know that we'll always be together. The wisdom in Isabella's words hit both adults like a physical blow. Their daughter had been abandoned once before, found alone and scared at a bus station. Of course she would worry about family stability and permanence. Isabella, Nicholas said, I can promise you that Elena and I will always be your parents, whether we're married or not. Nothing will ever change that. But I want us to be a real family with the same last name and everything. Sarah's mom and dad are divorced, but they both still love Sarah. If you and Mama Elena got married, you would love each other and love me. That's even better. Elena stood up and began clearing the picnic dishes, needing a moment to process what Isabella was asking. The truth was she had developed deep feelings for Nicholas over the past months. He was kind, generous, funny, and completely devoted to Isabella. She had watched him learn how to braid hair, help with second-grade math homework, and patiently answer the 1,000 questions that Isabella asked every day. More importantly, she had seen how he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. The respect and admiration in his eyes had gradually warmed into something deeper. But she had never allowed herself to hope that he might feel the same romantic feelings she was developing. Nicholas helped gather the rest of their picnic supplies, his mind racing. Elena had become essential to his happiness in ways that had nothing to do with Isabella. He loved coming home to find her singing in the kitchen. He loved their quiet conversations after Isabella went to bed. He loved watching her face light up when she talked about her boutique or her plans for the future. But Elena had given up so much to be part of their family. The last thing he wanted was for her to feel pressured into a romantic relationship out of gratitude or obligation. Isabella, Elena said as they walked back to the house, can you give Daddy Nicholas and me some time to talk about this privately? This is a big decision and we want to make sure we're thinking about it the right way. How much time? Isabella asked. How about you give us until your bedtime tonight? Nicholas suggested. Then we'll all talk together about what we think is best for our family. Isabella considered this. Okay, but I already know what's best. You two just need to catch up to what I already figured out. That evening, after Isabella had been tucked into bed with extra hugs and reassurances, Nicholas and Elena sat in the family room with cups of coffee, both nervous about the conversation they needed to have. Elena, Nicholas began, I want you to know that you should never feel pressured to consider marriage just because Isabella suggested it. Our arrangement is working perfectly as it is. Is it? Elena asked quietly. Nicholas, can I ask you something honestly? Of course. If Isabella hadn't brought this up, would you ever have considered the possibility of us being more than just co-parents? Nicholas set down his coffee cup and looked directly at Elena. Yes. I think about it every day. The honesty in his voice made Elena's heart race. So do I, she admitted. Elena, I've been falling in love with you for months. Not just because you're Isabella's mother, but because of who you are. You're strong, kind, funny, talented, and beautiful. But I didn't want to complicate our family situation by bringing romance into it. Nicholas, I love you too. I've been trying to ignore it because I didn't want you to think I was just grateful for everything you've done for us. They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the fact that they had just admitted their feelings for each other. So, Nicholas said finally, what do we do now? Elena smiled for the first time all evening. I think we follow our very wise daughter's advice. I think we stop overthinking this and trust what we all know is right. Elena Rodriguez, will you marry me? Nicholas asked, getting down on one knee right there in their family room. Yes, Nicholas Kane, I will marry you, Elena laughed, pulling him back up to the couch. But we're going to have to tell Isabella that she was right all along. She's going to be insufferable about this, Nicholas said, kissing Elena for the first time. The most insufferable 7-year-old wedding planner in Chicago, Elena agreed, kissing him back. From upstairs came the sound of footsteps, and Isabella appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas. Are you kissing? She called down. Because if you are, that means you decided to get married and I can start planning the wedding. Nicholas and Elena looked at each other and burst into laughter. Their daughter had orchestrated the whole thing perfectly. Yes, sweetheart, Elena called back. We're getting married. Isabella's cheer of victory could probably be heard 3 houses away. 6 months later, Elena Kane walked down the aisle of St. Michael's Church in a dress she had designed herself, toward the man who had become her husband in every way that mattered long before their wedding day. Isabella served as both flower girl and ring bearer, declaring that since she had brought them together, she deserved both jobs. The wedding had been perfect, attended by their growing circle of friends from Chicago and Elena's old friends from Millbrook. Nicholas's business associates had been initially surprised by his choice to marry his daughter's former guardian, but anyone who spent 5 minutes with the family could see that theirs was a love story built on the strongest foundation possible: mutual respect, shared values, and devotion to their child. Now, 3 months after the wedding, they had settled into married life with remarkable ease. Nicholas had worried that their relationship might change once they became husband and wife, but if anything, their bond had grown stronger. Elena had moved into the master bedroom, and they had converted her old room into a larger art studio where Isabella could work on projects alongside her mother. The only shadow on their happiness was the one mystery that remained unsolved: who had taken Isabella from Nicholas's home 5 years ago, and why she had been abandoned at that bus station. The truth came in the most unexpected way, through Elena's own determination to find answers. It had started as a simple curiosity. Elena wanted to understand more about Isabella's early life, partly to help their daughter process her history and partly to put her own mind at ease about what had happened during those missing hours. She had been quietly conducting her own investigation, using the contacts she had made through her boutique and her position in Chicago society. On this particular Tuesday morning, Elena was in her boutique when an elderly woman came in asking about alterations for a vintage dress. Something about the woman seemed familiar, but Elena couldn't place where she might have seen her before. I'm Margaret Patterson, the woman said as Elena examined the dress. I used to work as a housekeeper in some of the wealthy neighborhoods around here. Elena's hands stilled on the fabric. Patterson, that name sounds familiar. You might know my niece Patricia Kane. Well, she was Patricia Kane. She's back to using her maiden name now. Elena felt her blood turn cold. Patricia Kane was Nicholas's ex-wife, Isabella's biological mother who had left after the disappearance and never looked back. Did you say you used to work as a housekeeper? Elena asked carefully. Oh yes, for many years. I was working for the Kane family when their little girl went missing. Such a tragedy. That poor man searched everywhere for that child. Elena's mind was racing. Mrs. Patterson, can I ask you something? Do you remember anything unusual about the night Isabella disappeared? The elderly woman looked uncomfortable. Well, I probably shouldn't say anything, but it's been so long now, and I heard that Mr. Kane found his daughter and she's doing well. Please, Mrs. Patterson. I'm Isabella's mother now. I adopted her and married Nicholas. Anything you remember might help us understand what happened. Margaret Patterson sat down heavily in one of the fitting room chairs. I never told the police because I couldn't prove anything, and Patricia was always good to me. But the night before that little girl disappeared, I saw Patricia leaving the house very late with a suitcase. Elena's heart began pounding. Did you tell anyone about this? I mentioned it to Patricia the next morning when all the chaos started, and she said she had just been taking some old clothes to charity. But Mrs. Kane, I've been a housekeeper for 40 years. I know the difference between charity clothes and someone packing to leave town. Elena tried to keep her voice steady. Did you see her return that night? No, ma'am. She didn't come back until the next afternoon, just before the police arrived. Said she had been staying at her sister's house because she and Mr. Kane had been fighting. Mrs. Patterson, did you ever suspect that Patricia might have been involved in Isabella's disappearance? The older woman was quiet for a long moment. I didn't want to believe it. But Patricia had been saying for months that she wasn't ready to be a mother, that the child was ruining her marriage. And when little Isabella went missing, Patricia didn't act like a grieving mother. She acted like a woman who was relieved. Elena felt sick to her stomach. Why didn't you tell the police? Because I couldn't prove anything, and accusing a grieving mother of harming her own child? Well, it seemed too horrible to consider. But I've thought about it every day for 5 years. After Margaret Patterson left with her altered dress, Elena sat alone in her boutique, trying to process what she had learned. Could Patricia really have taken Isabella and abandoned her at a bus station? The idea was monstrous, but it would explain so many things that had never made sense. That evening, Elena waited until Isabella was asleep before telling Nicholas what she had discovered. His reaction was immediate and intense. "That's impossible," he said flatly. Patricia was cleared by the police. She had an alibi. An alibi that depended on her sister's testimony. Nicholas, think about it. Who else could have gotten past your security system? Who else would Isabella have gone with willingly? She was 2 years old, she wouldn't have left with a stranger. Nicholas began pacing their bedroom, his face pale with anger and disbelief. Elena, you're talking about Isabella's biological mother. Even Patricia, with all her faults, wouldn't abandon a toddler at a bus station. Wouldn't she? Nicholas, you told me yourself that Patricia blamed Isabella for your marriage problems. She left permanently just 6 months after Isabella disappeared. She never helped with the search, never showed up for interviews or appeals. Because she was grieving. Or because she knew exactly where Isabella was and knew she was safe. Nicholas stopped pacing and stared at Elena. Safe? You call abandoning a 2-year-old at a bus station safe? Think about it, Nicholas. Patricia would have known that someone would find Isabella quickly at such a public place. Maybe she thought social services would place her with a nice family, and that would solve her problem without anyone getting hurt. Except Isabella did get hurt. She was terrified and traumatized. Yes, but Patricia might not have anticipated that. She might have thought it would be quick and clean. Isabella would be found, placed in a good home, and Patricia could move on with her life without the responsibility of motherhood. Nicholas sat down on their bed, his head in his hands. Elena, even if this is true, how can we prove it? It's been 5 years. Mrs. Patterson said Patricia's sister provided her alibi. What if we talk to the sister? People's loyalty can change over 5 years, especially if they've been carrying guilt about lying to the police. Elena, I need you to understand something. If Patricia really did this, it means Isabella's own mother abandoned her. That knowledge could devastate our daughter. Elena sat beside Nicholas and took his hand. Or it could help her understand that what happened to her wasn't random. That she wasn't abandoned because she was unwanted, but because her biological mother wasn't capable of being a parent. Sometimes the truth, even when it's painful, is better than not knowing. Over the next week, Elena continued her investigation while Nicholas struggled with the possibility that his ex-wife had been responsible for their daughter's disappearance. Elena tracked down Patricia's sister, Linda, who was now living in Arizona and had been divorced twice since 2019. When Elena called Linda, the conversation was initially hostile. But when Elena mentioned that she was Isabella's adoptive mother and that the child was safe and happy, Linda's tone changed. You're the woman who found her at the bus station? Linda asked. Yes. Linda, I need to ask you about the night Isabella disappeared. Did Patricia really stay with you that night? There was a long silence on the phone. Finally, Linda spoke in a whisper. No. She called me around midnight and asked me to lie for her if anyone asked. She said she couldn't explain but that she needed an alibi for that evening. Elena's hands shook as she wrote down Linda's words. Did she ever tell you why she needed the alibi? Not directly. But a few months later, when she was drunk at Christmas dinner, she said something about making the biggest sacrifice of her life to give Nicholas what he really wanted, a daughter who would be better off without her. When Elena shared this information with Nicholas, he finally accepted the devastating truth. Patricia had taken Isabella from their home and abandoned her, not out of cruelty, but out of a twisted belief that she was doing what was best for everyone involved. Elena, what do we do with this information? Nicholas asked. Do we tell Isabella? Do we contact the police? Elena had been thinking about this question for days. I think we consult with Dr. Sarah Walsh, that child psychologist who helped us plan Isabella's room. We need professional guidance about how and when to tell Isabella the truth. And the police? The statute of limitations hasn't expired for child abandonment. That's Patricia's consequence to face. But Nicholas, we need to be prepared for the media attention this might bring. Patricia Kane, wealthy socialite, abandoning her own child, it's exactly the kind of story the press loves. 3 weeks later, Nicholas and Elena sat with Isabella in Dr. Walsh's office, carefully explaining what they had discovered about her early history. Isabella listened with the serious attention she gave to all important information, asking thoughtful questions and processing each piece of the story. "So my first mama didn't abandon me because she didn't love me?" Isabella asked. "She abandoned me because she thought someone else could love me better?" "That's right, sweetheart," Elena said. "Patricia made a terrible choice, but it wasn't because you weren't lovable. It was because she wasn't ready to be a mother. And if she hadn't made that choice, I never would have met Mama Elena, and we never would have become a family." Nicholas was amazed by his daughter's resilience and wisdom. "That's true, Isabella. Sometimes bad things lead to good things, even though we wouldn't choose for the bad things to happen." "Are you going to tell the police about Patricia?" Isabella asked. Nicholas looked at Elena and she nodded. They had agreed to let Isabella be part of this decision. "We think we should," Nicholas said. "What Patricia did was against the law, and other children might be safer if people know that abandoning children has consequences." "Will I have to talk to reporters and policemen?" "Dr. Walsh will help us make sure you only have to talk to people when you want to, and only about things you're comfortable sharing," Elena assured her. Isabella was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally, she looked up at both her parents with the clear eyes of a child who had learned that life could be complicated but that love always won in the end. "I think we should tell the truth," she said. "But I also think we should focus on our happy ending instead of Patricia's bad choice. We're a real family now and nothing can change that." 6 months later, Patricia Kane was sentenced to 2 years of probation and community service for child abandonment. The media coverage was intense but brief, and the Kane family emerged from it stronger than ever. Elena's boutique thrived, partly due to the publicity but mostly because of her exceptional talent and dedication to her customers. Nicholas returned his full attention to his business, which flourished under his renewed focus and energy. And Isabella continued to grow into a confident, loving child who understood that families came in many forms, but that love was always the most important ingredient. On Isabella's 9th birthday, as they celebrated in their backyard with friends from school and neighbors from their community, Elena watched her daughter blow out her candles and make a wish. "What did you wish for, sweetheart?" Nicholas asked. Isabella grinned at both her parents. "I wished for our family to be this happy forever and ever. But I think that wish is going to come true no matter what, because we already have everything we need." As Elena looked around at their friends, their beautiful home, and the two people she loved most in the world, she realized that Isabella was absolutely right. They had found their way to exactly where they belonged together. Dear readers, thank you for joining Nicholas, Elena, and Isabella on their incredible journey from heartbreak to healing, from searching to finding, and from gratitude to love. This story proves that families are built not just through blood, but through choice, commitment, and unconditional love. I'd love to hear from you. What part of their story touched your heart the most? Do you believe that everything happens for a reason, or do you think some people just make the best of difficult circumstances? Have you ever experienced a situation where a devastating loss led to an unexpected blessing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and insights make this community stronger.